Welcome back to Ship Happens. So on the days where we've got big tide, we can't walk to Sarinda, so this is our mode of transportation. So we're going in today with our Thrustme Kicker electric outboard, which we've never used it on the dinghy before, so it'd be interesting to see if it can, a little tiny outboard can actually push me and Simon tidal up against the tide to the boat.
So we're making motion. It's going well, nice and quiet. It's very therapeutic, this. I think we might be a bit early for the tide though, because our little shortcut route was like, we haven't got enough water yet, so we'll have to go around and then wait for the water. We'll get lifted up and then we'll park where we want to park, but we're not in a rush.
Still a bit shallow.
It's shallow, there's not even any water in the back.
And we've got all the lines that we have to work around. Oh, we are running aground.
You know when you're just that much too early?
Well, yeah, because we can still walk to the boat. But why have we brought the boat today?
To remove some rubbish?
Yes.
Yay! I got it right!
Right, so let's load the boat up with rubbish. At least we can get down and put it in the boat.
So have you ever heard the expression, you're going to need a bigger boat? Well, I think we've actually underestimated. So we brought the small boat because we need to remove some rubbish, but I think the rubbish is bigger than the boat. So it's going to be fun. And Gemma just pointed out that we might have to take the seat out, and I think she's right.
Do you want the heavy wood one first?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I don't know whether that's going to go.
There's nothing sharp in there.
Oh, let it off, cut some wood.
Nails in it.
I wouldn't push it, you know.
What?
Are you going to get that in there?
Yeah. I'm going to put a bungee over the top.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can see them falling out and you litter pick them for all week.
Right, so today I'm getting blinded by the sun because what we're going to be doing today is investigating and trying to figure out how we're going to be changing the deck here in this location. So how do you change the deck where we are? So underneath these sheets there's actually a wooden deck which is all nicely caulked. It's quite beautiful, but it's all the edges that are very, very poorly into it. So we need to start trying to make a plan on how we can actually change the decks, because it's not a one-day job, is it? So but we need to try and sort of be methodical. So I think the first job we need to look at is the beam shelf and how we're going to do that.
So replacing the decks isn't as easy as it seems. There is a lot of things that we have to do at once to be able to get the deck on. The first thing that we need to do is the beam shelf. Now up here it doesn't look too bad, but it's worse than it looks. There's cracks, it's rotten, there's damage. But over on the starboard side, there isn't even a beam shelf there in places. So we can't put the beam shelf in one big piece because of the curvature of the boat. So I think what we've decided to do is that we're going to laminate the beam shelf in place. So we're quite lucky that we can sort of change the beam shelf before we actually remove any of the deck, because all the way around the boat there is big holes in the boat, as you know, that's where we've put the new frames in. So we can replace the beam shelf without ripping up the whole deck by using the cutouts that we've used for the frames.
So I've had this brewing in my little brain for quite a few years now on how we're going to change this beam shelf. Initially I was like, I don't know, thinking it'll come to me one day, and it came to me pretty soon after. Anyway, so as Gemma pointed out before, the deck's really poorly, so we're going to take advantage of that. So what we can do is cut the deck right the way along where the new beam shelf, well, where the old beam shelf is. Then we can basically cut out the beam shelf. So there's basically where all the fixings are, so we can get the fixings, we can get the old beam shelf out. And then we can basically, as Gemma pointed out earlier, we can then laminate the beam shelf. The reason we're going to laminate it is because it's very curvy on this part of the boat. This is a 125mm by 51mm, so to bend a piece of material like that, you're probably saying, yeah, you could steam bend it, but then I don't know whether we can work quick enough to get it in, because what we need to do is wedge it between the web frame and the frame. So that's why we've left it like that, and then it's going to come down to the packers. So if you remember all the packers we've been putting in, that is the safe landing zone and where the beam shelf is going to come down to. So technically, if we're laminating this in 3 pieces, we can actually screw the very bottom beam shelf right down into these packers to hold position until the rest of them come in. I've not quite worked out that yet, but as you can see here, the actual deck beam goes, I think it's called a dovetail, into the beam shelf. So the actual deck beam goes past, dovetailed into the beam shelf, and then goes to the hull, and that obviously carries the deck on top. But what we can do, because we're changing all of these deck beams, we can actually cut the end off here, and then the new beam shelf can go in, and then when the new deck beams go on, or just about to go on, we can then put the dovetails in, and then the new deck beams can oversail all the way out towards the hull.
But before we can do the beam shelf, we really need to make sure all the frames in the anchor locker are all in good enough condition, or if there's any in there that we need to replace. So the only way that we're going to be able to get access into the anchor locker is going to have to be through the roof.
Or go on a diet. We'll go through the roof.
I like chocolate too much. Okay.
But before any of the decks go on, all that sort of stuff, the stem, I think it's called the stem post, stem, whatever, the very, very front piece of wood of the boat is actually rotten. Just behind that, it looks in good condition. But we've got the cut water, which needs to come off to be able to access that. Good old British weather, hence we're stood inside at the moment. Can you hear it?
We was up on the roof though 5 minutes ago,
know, and
it was glorious sunshine. So once all that work's done, we've also got to replace all of the deck beams. Now, they're pretty straightforward all through the bow area on the boat, until you get to here, because above us here is the wheelhouse, and we can't take the whole wheelhouse off to replace this deck beam. So we're gonna have to do some thinking on that one.
I've already thought about it. So, originally, okay. So this one is the deck beam. This one here is what I keep referring to as the gun mount, but where the original gun used to sit, so it had to have some mass to it, didn't it, so to carry the 1-ton gun. So if you look here, when they did the conversion in the 80s, they actually cut the deck beam and the gun mount, my words. But then they actually put other beams to carry the sole of the wheelhouse. So there's new beams going through. So there's these beams here and there's these beams here. So we're not actually that reliant on this particular beam. So if we could basically, from the engine bearers, so if we could prop up the wheelhouse, just take a bit of load. Can you hear the thunder? You might not be able to hear the thunder. So if we could prop up the wheelhouse, it's only that much. The beam only goes that far under the wheelhouse, so it's not actually carrying the whole wheelhouse or the whole roof, is it? So I don't think it's an issue. But how do you get the beam in? Because you can't just drop it in from the top, can you? With like all the other ones. But what I think our plan is to laminate. So actually laminate, or we could fit it from inside and then send it forward. I think inside and sending it forward is the favourable, but we'll only do that once all the other beams are all fit, and we can actually push off them beams then and equalise it. It's fine, we've got it planned.
So we also need to remove the windlass.
Right, so someone's definitely got to go in there through the hole to have a good look, haven't we? Because it's bucketing it down now. So.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors. We're going to fake it. I bet there's me who's going in there, isn't it?
Well, I don't mind. Go on.
Rock, paper, scissors. Hang on.
Right.
Hang on. What about an arm wrestle?
No.
Okay. Fun more?
No. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No, it's 1, 2, 3. Then go. 1, 2, 3. Go. 1, 2, 3. Go.
Is this to go in there or to not go in there?
To the winner gets to not go in there. I think the loser goes in there.
The winner decides.
Yeah.
Okay.
The loser goes in there.
Go on, just do it slowly. This isn't for real.
2, 3, and then your
so it's
next
on 4.
pop. Yeah.
So you do it on 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3,
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. What the fuck's that?
Get out of the way.
I don't mind going in, honestly.
Not getting your mug over, isn't it? Oh, there's a spider web on my hair. Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah. It's amazing how deep it goes. I'm stood up here. Oh my god. What the hell have we bought?
Was this not in the survey when we bought it?
Yeah, we surveyed this and then just bucketed it down. Now, you know what? It's not too bad. The very bad bit is this deck beam here, which that used to have a cleat on it here. There used to be a cleat, and I think in some sort of storm or something like that, it's basically just ripped the cleat off and obviously exposed the rot.
And there's no deck above it.
And there's no deck above it because I think we put that in, didn't we?
Yeah.
But then the actual beam shelf, obviously we'll change it, but it doesn't look too bad. But then it goes to really bad because it's scarfed here. They're really shallow scarfs, aren't they? But there's just so much junk. But the actual frames and stuff like that, they're really good. I don't know if you want to pass me a little hammer or something. See, that's because it's been painted, isn't it?
Looks really good. How does it look high up? Because that's usually where it fails.
I don't know why they've been doubled up here. See this one here has been put in but no nails.
Oh yeah, all three of them got no nails in.
Yeah. So I think we try and get this out.
My worry about getting that out is there's no beam shelf at the top, and that is sort of resting on that.
It's not doing
and resting on this.
So it's doing nothing. Right, so we're going to try and pull this, like, I'm going to call it a bulkhead, but I'm sure it's like it's stop the chain going places, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a very watertight bulkhead.
It's not very watertight, but you could probably smuggle something forward, so we'll definitely look after it so we can go back in. Gemma's looking at me all funny.
What happens if we find like a skeleton in there now?
There might be drugs. So my approach to getting it out now, if you look at these fixings here, they're completely rotten, obviously off of the 80s. What I'm doing is put my chisel down the back of it and then just sort of splitting it, and we might damage the piece of wood that goes laterally. What is that like? When you got deck falling on you.
Okay, and this is officially the worst place in the boat to film.
Yeah, and work.
And work. It's like uncovering a new piece of boat because we've never physically like seen right down the bottom here, have we, at the stem post? Is that we're gonna get it out of this hole, dear? Well, go for the bigger hole, like. Yeah, make your life a bit easier.
No, you should always start with the tightest.
How are we gonna get this out of that hole?
Yeah.
Oh!
I don't drag it, it's got spiky bits.
It's in good condition, that though.
It's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stop banging your head on that, Simon. Keep banging my head on it.
To me.
Here.
Oh, it definitely needs a good hoover. Right.
Just tools off the shelf.
Yeah.
In fact, that's all going to end up in the bottom. So if there was the bucket, I'll clean as much as they can first. Three times I've had probably this windlass now.
You know, like they say, learn by your mistakes.
Yeah, sometimes. I think we could undo this knot. Or should we get a knife?
Wonder what the strap. Oh, do you reckon was there a battery here at one point?
Well done.
Yay! I know things.
I know stuff. So obviously the battery was here to be like in close proximity to the big DC motor. Then it was like supplied from the engine room DC. So I think eventually we're going to be having a big big sort of battery here, but then we'll have a battery charger and local, so we can charge it whenever we want. Oh no. It's dry anyway there. A bit too dry. Obviously I've got to keep all these parts because, like, apart from the fixings, it's not in bad nick, but if not we can use it as a template. I feel like a sort of cool kid hanging out of a school bus window.
Or ice cream, man.
Ice cream.
Can I have a 99er?
Honestly, who put wires through in the middle of it? Strangely, I was expecting the cable to be black as a bad cable, but the end don't look too bad.
Is it tinned?
No. No, it's not, you know.
Right, it is my turn to get in, and let's assess the frames and see if there is anything that needs fixing in there.
I've got you some orange paint.
Oh, cool.
Oh, do you see that throw up? What do you want?
No. I have to get my legs in first.
It's a bit easy now. I've removed all the
Yeah. God, it is messy now. Oh. Right, stop. I'm not here to scrape paint. It's quite like obsessive, isn't it? But
why don't you clamp this up somewhere so you can get it closer?
The stem post.
I need to Google if that's what it's called.
So there's like an inner and an outer to this. So the inside bit looks great. Obviously it's a bit dirty. But we'll go outside shortly and go and have a look at the outside. Right, should we start looking at frames? I've just noticed, it's weird, isn't it? Because like the stringers here are really close to the hull. You know, because they go in. So obviously there's no frame. This is the last frame. So there's no frames, there's just literally a couple of stringers. So they don't even tie in really to the stem post because there's a gap between the ends of them.
Well, it looks like the inner stem is put in afterwards. Because they've all been cut back, haven't they, a bit roughly. So obviously the planks will be attached to it. It's always nice to make some like little knees or something, which then...
Yeah, give it a bit more...
Yeah.
But all the planks look okay, so obviously so there's no frames at the front. The actual beam shelf at the very front is in good condition as well, and the big, I'm going to say that's a knee at the front. Up here.
Which, there's no bolts in it.
There's one.
But there's none on the side, which it's the same on the Medusa. So unless they've drilled it on the bench and then they went, hang on a minute, we don't want the bolts there, we'll put the bolts through a different way.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see, because it's not like they've broken off. Does it actually look like there's been any bolts in it? Any like evidence of washers or anything?
Yeah, there is, you know. Right, pass me some gloves and a bucket. I'll have a quick muck out and then we'll give it a full assess.
So while Gemma's scraping in the chain locker, we need to think about the beams. So originally they were made of pitch pine, I believe, on the old drawings anyway. These are basically original 1940s. The very ends of them are rotten. They're not bad in the middle of some of them. This one here, we want to keep it. Obviously, it'd be nice because it's got all the original registration number on it and stuff like that. I don't think we'll be keeping it as part of the structure. It might just go like to sister one or something. You sort of go alongside a new one just to sort of keep the original number. But I don't quite know how we're going to make them. So the longest beam we need to change is like 5 meters. Whether we're going to actually saw them, so we're going to get a big chunk of wood and then we're going to actually cut quite a lot of it, which you then get quite a bit of waste. Or we could laminate them, so I could make a jig in the workshop. We could then like stack up a load of thinner pieces to get the curve, which personally I think that'd be stronger. After our experience laminating, it's quite a good way of doing it, but I think it's going to cost us quite a lot of money in oak. I mean, there's quite a bit going on there. But the beauty of it, we can actually make it all in the workshop. So, and then we can bring all these big beams over. We can take the deck off, and then we can then basically insert these new beams. Not quite sure on the final plan yet, but if you guys have got any good ideas on what we could use for the beams and stuff like that, but it's got to be flawless, hasn't it? Whatever we fits has got to like do well for the boat, isn't it?
So the only way I can physically clean all the crap that's fell down there is to sit like this because there's no space, but then I'm having to bend that far over. I get a pain in my stomach. Look, I just can't physically get to it, look.
We need a small person.
Well, that's a bit better.
Oh, it's better Gemma doing it than me, isn't it?
Right, I've given it a quick clean and a quick scrape, so let's assess it. The stem post, I might be making that word up, so someone might want to correct me on that one, but that's what we're calling it today. Stem post looks really, really good, apart from the very top. So that's something we're going to have to assess further when we take the deck up to see whether that crack goes all the way through or whether it's just superficial and we can get away with filling it with epoxy. So that's one to assess. Something really weird's going on in here with the frames and the stringers. So we'll start this side. We've got a really bad frame there. It's scarfed and it's really weird because we've never seen any scarf joints done in the frames, so I don't think that was done originally. I think this had a repair maybe in the 80s when the conversion was done, because there's no copper nails in them. It's all flathead bronze screws, I think. So that top of that frame needs replacing, so where the scarf joint is, that's going. Then they've put loads of sisters in, but the sisters aren't fixed with anything. They've literally just threw in bits of wood down there. So the sisters are okay. Obviously the bits next to it are not. So that needs doing. Then as we go further back, the same thing. We've got a scarf joint in this frame. Then we've also got a sister. So we've got a copper nail here. So this is original. But then up here, it's just flathead screws. It's got a sister in with no fixings in. Same there and same there. Top of this is gone. Top of that is gone. And then the very tops of the sister and the frame, they're gone. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But literally they're only to here. Sorry, the lighting is rubbish in here, isn't it? I'm like... But further down, perfect. Absolutely perfect. All the stringers, all the frames. There's no web frames or knees in here, so that's a bonus.
I didn't even notice that.
Didn't you?
No.
No web frames. Yeah, no knees. But obviously, I think there's no deck beam there. But I think when we do put it in, it would be nice maybe to add a knee to it just for some more support.
Okay, that's good enough.
Right, let's go over to the port side. So something really odd's going on the port side. So here are our original stringers, and they've been cut off and then replaced. But when they've replaced it, they've notched in round the frames, which is weird. And again, there's no copper fixings. It's all just flathead, I'm going to say silica bronze screws.
Well, they've lasted though, haven't they?
They have lasted, but they're only going probably into the frames, aren't they? And probably
That's all you need them to go
not into the planks. So maybe we'll add a few copper nails in it so it's all together. So yeah, we don't understand why they've cut them stringers and then added other pieces in.
Maybe she's had a crash.
It's all a bit bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what this block's for.
That's a butt block.
Well, that's not even fixed in.
Okay.
Then you've got more random little sisters. So all of the stringers, they don't actually go in, and the deck beam up here as well. They're not actually the beam shelf. Yeah, they're not actually jointed in to the stem posts anyway. They don't even touch. So I don't know why, because I'm not a boat expert.
Yeah, but is it say it might be done on purpose for like a crash point of view as well?
Yeah, so we don't know, but we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Obviously that's been fine for the past 40 years, but we might add some extra strength in here and maybe double up these, or do you leave it weak as like a crumple zone sort of crash protection so it doesn't damage further back, because obviously we've got watertight bulkhead there. We don't know. So obviously,
what about your big pipe? Your hose pipe?
What are you calling a hose pipe? I haven't got a big pipe. Right, let me... Ow!
Ha!
Oh, that one hurts.
He's had me about 4 times. I say great pleasure in seeing someone else do it.
Next time we're here and it's not raining, that's coming off.
Well, that was meant to happen today, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the rain just hasn't stopped. Oh, that really hurts. Right.
Oh, Lois.
My hose pipe. A bit rusty, but actually...
Is that what it's called though? It might not be called a hose pipe, but that's basically where the anchor sits. So when you release the tension off the windlass, the anchor will actually fall, so you don't have to kick it off the side or anything like that.
Yeah, so we've got a hose pipe which just needs a little clean up. Actually feels solid. I can't put my screwdriver through it. So
oh, it's fixed then. Perfect.
It just needs a little grind off and a lick of paint. We've got loads of bolts coming through here. And this is the big plate that the anchor sits on. You know, they look a bit rusty and the washers are all corroded off, so maybe...
Well, we can pull the plate, can't we?
Yeah, pull the plate, freshen up with all nice stainless stuff. But it's not as bad in here as I thought it was going to be. Obviously, we know the beam shelf, beam shelf. Yeah. So we know the beam shelf is all getting replaced anyway. We know all the deck beams are getting replaced because obviously we haven't got one up there. So yeah, not as much work in here than what we thought there was going to be, so that's good. So literally, yeah,
Well,
one,
imagine
two,
changing the
three,
frames in there.
4, 5 top of the frames.
Yeah, just imagine having to change all them down there.
Well, I would erode it. I'd have to like work upside down. So yeah, really, really happy that Notting down south is rotten. So Simon, can I get out of this hole now?
Yeah. Do you need a hand or can I film you getting out? You normally just stand aside and film me, don't you?
Yeah.
Go on. Good. Give him a push screwdriver.
I hope this shelf's strong enough.
But it's on my way.
Let me down. Not the funnest places to work in there. But I'm happy. It's not as bad as it could be, is it?
Right, so from a strategy point of view, what we need to do really is the beam shelf. That should be our first port of call because we can take the very outer edge of the deck off and the beam shelf going. So once we've done that, then we can start actually taking all of the top off. I don't know whether we're going to do it all in one hit because we're fiberglassing it, so we can basically...
Smell nice.
I'm trying to do a sensible thing here.
Unsure what happens? No
It
sense.
just comes and licks me ear or something.
I wanted to disagree with you on doing the beam shelf first. I think we need to take the top off and do them 5 bits of frames.
But that's where they're behind the beam shelf.
They are behind the beam shelf, but once you do the beam shelf and there's loads of glue everywhere, if we're going to laminate them, getting some frames in might be a bit difficult.
Okay. Yeah.
We need to fight about this one off camera.
Okay. So you've just sort of like come in and butted in. So I was going to do the whole thing, talk about the whole thing.
Go on, I'll leave you with them.
Yeah, so when we're doing the beam shelf, we're going to find a lot of problems on the top of the frames. So once the beam shelf is off, we've got access then to the very, very top of the frame. So then we can put a little scarf in it and a repair, do a beautiful job of that, and then the new beam shelf can come along.
Carry on, I'm not here.
I wish Jim would piss off. So once the beam shelf is done, I don't know how far down we're going to go with the beam shelf, but we're going to be doing it in sections. So we're going to be doing 3 metre, 4 metre sections. And I think how we're going to do it is we're going to laminate. So we're going to put it in 3 pieces, but what we can do is brickwork the 3 pieces. So we haven't got to join in one location. So that can go along, and then we can slip it in nicely, glue it all up, be beautiful. We can basically bolt it all together and actually fix it down. So once the beam shelf's done, then we can start with the deck beams. So then we'll start right on the point of it, on the small bits, then we'll start working our way back, installing the new deck beams, and then we can then put our ply on the top. I don't know whether we're going to fiberglass it all at once or we're going to get a really good sheet and sheet it all up, just in case it rains, or it's going to rain in it because we haven't had any nice weather at all this year. And then we're going to move our way aft. So then when we get aft, the biggest problem area we've got is the deck beam underneath the wheelhouse, which is going to be the hardest to change, I think. But I've got a bit of an idea on how we can do it. We can basically, hopefully, once we know the curvature, we can then actually push it up and then slide it forward, and then we can then prop it up, and then we can then put the knees in, then that's going to hold it in position. Don't know if that's going to go properly to plan or not, but that's the only way I can see it, apart from taking the whole wheelhouse off, or maybe even taking the front of the wheelhouse off, and then we can drop it in and then rebuild the front of the wheelhouse, which that is an option, because I know it's not in the best condition where the deck meets the wheelhouse. Well, the deck actually goes under the wheelhouse and then the wheelhouse is here, so that might be a viable option, but we'll only know that right last minute when we're actually doing the job, because it's all going to be opening it. We can't really properly plan for that. So there is another element, which is the original hatch. So when she was the HDML, yeah, the little hatch that you can basically climb down like a ladder. I kind of feel like we should keep the original hatch location, because we've actually got the original hatch location, but they just put plywood over the top of it. So I think we might retain that, or at least take some really good measurements on where that is located, and in the future, because we need a hatch forward anyway, so it'd be nice to use the original one. So, plan with the bulwarks, because obviously we want to retain the 1980s look, because I quite like that. I was kind of born around then as well. Once we've got a nice fiberglass waterproof deck on it, which will be overhanging, because it'll be too big, because there's no point making it too small, and then we'll cut it back to conform to the shape of the hull. Then we'll put some small holes into the deck. So my initial plan, might change, is put the holes in, then we're going to knock a frame down. So the frame will span the beam shelf and the first stringer. So that'll give us a lot of strength that way, technically. And then the plywood then, not cardboard, plywood will then go onto that there, and also the plywood then be attached to the planks down low. That's the initial. If this isn't quite strong enough, what we can do is actually build this out, so then it goes on the outside of the beam shelf and across the second stringer. That'll be super strong, won't it? Because I think the bulwarks will be quite nice. Imagine you stood here drinking your cup of tea, middle of somewhere beautiful. It's the dream, isn't it? Right, so biggest problem area is probably this stem here. I think these here are the ends of the bolts, so the big bronze bolts which hold all this together, so it keeps the whole sandwich, because there's like the internal stem, I'm going to call it, and then the outer stem. So this has to come off. But as you can see, it's full of filler and stuff like that, where like someone's tried to blend it. But to basically properly do this, we need to take this cut water off. But then this cut water goes all the way down, right below the waterline.
Could be hiding more rotten damage behind it.
More rotten damage, but so we need to see, don't we? Bit nervous about taking it off, because it might expose something, but we need to know.
But the issue about you take it off, you sort of need to put it back together, because like obviously we're in the water.
No, it doesn't matter. You can leave it off. It's not offering any water integrity.
Oh no, I suppose it look fine from the inside.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got to spend quite a bit of time getting that off. We need to get this big plate off here. This plate here is for when the anchor comes up the pipe here and basically protects it. But we've seen images of the boat from the 80s. The anchor sort of sat around here, so they kind of miscalculated this stainless plate. So that's what this was here. So it'd be nice to actually put another piece of stainless in to sort of, we haven't even got an anchor, but when we do make an anchor, to put it there. This tube here, we're looking from the inside, it was rotten on the outside and it's rotten on the inside, so I think we need to change this tube, which will make our life quite a bit easier, because we could just cut it out.
Wouldn't it be nice to change that for a nice bit of stainless?
Yes, if you've got a piece of stainless kicking around in your workshop, which you found, if you're like me, you'd be like, I'll find a use for that one day. This could be the use. Maybe we should have taken the measurement. So it's 5 inches, I guess. We'll just get bigger, can't we? But then we need to have a look what it looks like on the top. What I've not seen under there, because it's been under a sheet for a while.
So the issue we've got doing all of this work here is
the terrain.
The terrain. We're on such a hill here.
Because like we can't do a proper job up here. We're gonna have to make a. Maybe we can use our thing we use on the back to sort of protect the back. We can actually put that across the ground and we get some barrels or something. Put the barrels in the ground to make a bit of a platform to work off. I mean, I have got a scaffolding at the workshop, but it's a bit of a drama, isn't it? But then the scaffold will probably straddle these lines.
Right, so we've got a lot to do.
A lot to do, and yeah. And just to top it off, we need to change some planks as well while we're there. So we need to get some plank material ordered up. Right, so that's been an interesting time for us, haven't we? We've done some exploration and trying to figure out how we're going to do our decks and stuff, haven't we?
I've got loads of like bits of paint chippings and wood inside my shoe from being in there.
Oh, well, it's part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Part of the fun.
So, exciting news
Ooh.
that I'm really sort of proud about. Last
Proud of
week,
yourself?
I'm proud of myself. I am, and I think when you achieve something, you should always be proud of yourself, shouldn't you? Last week, I passed my RYA day skipper theory course, which I've done that online with Ardent Training, and them guys have been fantastic because I've been able to do the course at a time that suits me, which, you know, I'm very limited on time lately, but for the past few months I've been working on it. So I sat the 3-hour exam last week and I passed, so I was really happy about that. But Ardent Training have been fantastic. So even though you sat at home doing it online, they're there to support you. You know, if anything I was struggling on, I could send them a message straight away and they'd get back to me instantly. So thank you so much to Charlie and Ed and the team at Ardent Training. I've learned so much, and I think I've got so much more confidence now because I've got some extra knowledge on the water, which is great. But they've also very kindly offered our viewers a discount. So if you use the code SHAPPENS10, you'll get 10% off your course if you book it online, which is really nice of them. They didn't have to do that.
Check it out, have a look.
Yeah, they haven't paid me to endorse them in any way.
No,
but I've done the course.
It's a good recommendation, isn't it? It's good to have like a recommendation.
Yeah, and obviously they very kindly offered us all a discount.
You can do it anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, not just UK, anywhere in the world.
Anywhere with an internet connection.
Yes. So, speaking about internet connections, we've just gave you all a lot of information today.
And I bet you've got a lot of questions.
Yeah. And you might have a lot of confusion. Why are you doing it like that? Or doing
And
it
a
like
lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
Do you like... So, yeah.
So what we've decided is next Friday we will not be doing an episode.
Oh, we're not?
No, we're just leaving the boat and going.
See you later.
No, we're going to do a live instead. It's been quite a while since we've done a good live with you guys, isn't it? Yeah. And we thought it'd be a good time for you to give us your input or your ideas or feedback on what we've discussed today or anything else in that matter. It doesn't have to be
just say, that's a brilliant idea, Simon and Gemma. Or run with it.
You absolute idiot, what are you doing?
Why don't you do it like this? Use paper clips instead.
Yeah.
Like...
We're open to everyone's input and suggestions, not just to do with the deck and what we spoke about today, but any questions that you've got. So next week we're not going to do it at the normal time of 4 PM, which our episodes go out at. We're going to do it at 7 PM BST.
Okay. Smarty pants, learning all this BST.
GTM +1.
MFD, yeah.
So yeah, we hope you can join us for a live next week. Because it'd be nice to just have a chat, won't it?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. But for now, we're off home.
Yep. Cheers, guys.
See you all later.
See you later. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done already, as it really helps the channel out. See you all next week.